Congratulations. You have discovered another meta egg. You're home for the meta aspects of movies. Today, we're going to go retro and talk about a movie from, what is it, 1994. Is that right? There's
In
so many.
93 and 92 and 90 and 61 and 56 and a whole bunch.
Yeah, there's a lot of dates involved, no doubt. Today, we're talking with Paranoid American, a.k.a. Thomas from Sink Tank. How you doing, Thomas? Thank you for
Good.
joining us.
AKA Clifford.
Yeah, I asked you right before, like, which of all of the movies we're going to talk about tonight, who do you identify with the most? And you kind of said that you fit into the Clifford category, but why do you identify with this movie? Since this was your pick, you made me watch it. So why? Why did you make me watch this?
This is just a sleeper, man. It's a sleeper, and I'm up for a challenge. And I know that part of this series is breaking down all the synchronicities and any kind of like occult symbolism. And Clifford is one of those movies that anytime it's on TV or I'm just like casually browsing around back when I just would browse TV, this and Demolition Man, if it were on, I'm watching it to the end, even if I had something else planned that day. And it's not even necessarily a cinematic experience. It's not like the greatest movie experience ever, but there's something so surreal about it. And I was actually delighted to find an old article where they were talking about the original inception of this movie. And it was very self-aware. Everyone knew that it was a very surreal take to have not just this problem child, but have the problem child acted out by an adult person, and that adult person being Martin Short of all people. And I guess that this is back when movies would just be greenlit over a dinner. You're like, hey, here's the pitch. Martin Short plays a kid, and someone's just like, I love it, I'm funding it, and that's all that they needed.
There's a lot of moving parts to the inspiration for the movie, though. Like Martin Short's even inspired by what it's inspired and why it was Martin Short, and the fact that it was like, once you sent me that article, I realized that they had written this for like a real kid and then had come up across the problem of like being put up against the problem child at the same time, and then decided that using Martin Short instead of a kid made him giggle more, I guess.
It
But
works. It puts a new spin on it. And when I started looking through all the different inspirations that led up to Clifford, it really does stand apart because there's going to be some very consistent themes that we're going to be able to point out from this. And Clifford meets all of them, right? One of those themes is 8 to 10-year-old kid. I think once you get into like 12 and 13, you're sort of expected to be a little bit of a psychopath because you're going through puberty and you're just like getting into rebellious age. So I guess the ages between like around like 8, that if you're a true Hellraiser at 8, then maybe that adds like this extra complexity to it.
you're just evil. Like that's the delta. I guess like puberty involved, like people kind of get a little bit more extra. I mean, that's the story usually of like Romeo and Juliet and whatever, but there's something that like really like is punctuated by the fact that this is an adolescent's evil. Like there's a evilness to the kid itself. And it plays out like all of the damn movies you made me watch, man, it plays over and over and over again. Do you mind if you can present the list of all of the research that we did for this movie?
Yeah, I mean, you can just mention the movies, or you want me to like pull up notes?
Pull up the notes, man. Pull up the notes.
Okay, all right, let me pull some
Because it
notes.
changed, it adapted. Like there was like maybe a couple of times where I like clipped it, and then it got more advanced, and then we started talking about like, do demon babies and all of that count? There's a lot of confusion because most of the time when you say like we're watching Clifford, people think that like there's it's the dog movie with the big red dog, you know.
That one
But
was more popular than this one by far. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and the Charles Grodin though, his involvement in it involved with like roll over Beethoven and its archetype of like the same thing, like a dog, like this not fully conscious being who is like total evil. You know what I mean? There's just like this weird kind of through line.
Well, Beethoven wasn't evil. Beethoven was like insufferable, but he was ultimately a good dog, I think.
Yeah, he heard us talking about him.
He's a good boy.
I
I got my notes pulled up
first time
here.
you saw this movie?
When it came out, probably not in the theater, but like as soon as it hit HBO, I guess 6 months to a year later.
So it's like it's a fond memory of yours, like.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that I'm surprised that other people haven't seen it, and I just realized over time, like, oh, people hate this movie. They don't think that it's very good, but I've always found movies that are my favorites are usually panned pretty hard. Like even Demolition Man. Like I truly believe Demolition Man is a top, like a S tier movie, top 5 movie. We'll have to save that for another episode. But Clifford's
I
kind of.
remember seeing Demolition. Demolition Man was a big deal. There's sort of like something about what you said about Clifford being a sleeper. I found to be true because like I think that and like it going up against Problem Child, maybe that was the same idea, or maybe it was just the fact that I knew it was Martin Short. And there's something like I don't want to displace like Martin Short's like brilliance. You get what I'm saying? But there is something like, especially around this time period, that was like kind of hit or miss about him, I guess. So without seeing this movie, I kind of judged this movie. And this was like the first time that I watched it. I was like pretty surprised at how much money was involved, because it's like especially like the dinosaur scene at the end. There's like a lot of like money being thrown at those scenes. And I'm not really sure, like, I mean, it's almost up there in scale to, I mean, this is later, but with like The Great Outdoors or something like that. Like this was an attempt to be a family movie. And even the people in the interview that you sent me were talking about it like they hadn't talked about it before. You know what I mean? I think it was like the 30th anniversary or something.
Yeah, they were like, you want to talk about what? Clifford? Okay. No one's ever asked about this movie.
So give me some of the influences, because there's a lot.
Pull me up. I got them shared.
Here we go.
So it started with, okay, we're gonna watch Clifford. What the hell are we gonna extrapolate from Clifford? And then I found that interview, and it basically broke it all the way open. And it mentioned that it was originally about the bad seed, which is 1956. So this is like one of the earlier archetypes of this kind of problem child, tyrant child. And after I wrote down all these different movies, I started putting together the commonalities between them. So here's what I think the commonalities are between all these different movies. 8 to 10-year-old kid that at some point in the movie, there's a debate between nature versus nurture. Right. Almost directly, almost like by name, they'll mention that most of them have a reference to psychology or shrinks. Some of them have children drawing these like violent blood dismemberment sketches in like school, and the teacher's like, we got to talk about your kid. There's another common theme. Here's another big one, is that an adult knows that this kid is a psychopath or crazy or out of their mind, but for some reason are powerless to stop it. Whether the kid has some sort of a blackmail over you, or maybe it's just that no one else will believe you and you're afraid to like be socially ostracized for hating an 8-year-old child, right? So there's like this, if you were to go around and be like, my 15-year-old is a nightmare, here's all the horrible things that they're doing, maybe people are like, oh my God, I understand. But if you're like, my 7-year-old is a nightmare, it's like there's something wrong with you. So there's a reason that the adults can't necessarily correct the behavior. The other big one that comes up more specifically in some than others is that all of these kids clearly need limits, and they know that they need limits, and they even sometimes want those limits. But as soon as an adult imposes any limitations, that's when they snap. And that's when usually the violence or the blackmail or whatever it is, it'll escalate to this next level, despite knowing all that. And then the rest of them are pretty typical. Hurting animals. Here's the escalation as I see it. First, it's about hurting animals. And I feel like this one, maybe an innocent kid, like I don't want to put myself out here as a psychopath, but I feel like most young boys growing up that are touching grass outdoors, which I know doesn't happen anymore, but like the 80s and 90s, I'm outside. When I was a kid, I chopped a worm in half thinking that maybe it would grow into two worms or something, right? But like at a certain point or like an escalation of consciousness, you realize like this isn't good. You can't just kill like a bird or like a rabbit or like, and maybe if you kill more than just a handful of worms, that's also kind of weird unless you're fishing. But here's this escalation in this archetype. First, it starts with hurting animals. Then it escalates to hurting peers. So other people that are like of your age, maybe getting into a fight or like a stranger at school. Then it goes to siblings. And I feel like it crosses this threshold of like, well, now you're hurting your own family of people that are about your age. And then when it escalates, it's other adults like a teacher or a nanny or
or
someone that
whoever
works in your
witnessed
yard.
you mess up your sibling.
And then it escalates to the parents. And I feel like that's kind of the ultimate taboo is that a child is harming their parent. It's kind of got this like king kill ritual taboo like baked into it. So that's the full escalation.
Like there's a little
And
bit of Oedipus in here, although I have not noticed Oedipus being mentioned often. Like the whole psychology aspect of this is almost always pegged towards Oedipus. Like Oedipus is like the flagship of psychoanalysis or whatever. It's like what, but you're right. Like certain things are almost overly abundant as far as like there being some sort of psychiatrist involved. There's always like this exhibition where they're explaining what's wrong to the kid in the way that like kind of excuses their behavior every time. That's kind of like wild. But there's always like also a jealous, like they're always almost the majority of them, not all of them, but there's always some jealousy towards like a younger sibling or something like that. Like they get jealous because mom's not nurturing them as much as this other entity that is now in their life.
and they all put up a front too. Every single one of these puts up a front as if they don't care what any adult thinks of them,
Right.
but clearly they do. Like that's the utmost focus of whatever their derangement is. It's the attention that they get from adults more than anybody else. So that's another common theme. And I think if I had to boil it down into one word, what this is about tyranny. It's about being afraid that the child that you brought into the world becomes a tyrant and you now submit to this tyrant, which is sort of like, I guess, most new parents, right? They bring this screaming baby home and they can't sleep for months. It's like, oh my God, what did I do? This kid's going to ruin my life. And I
Right.
feel like this archetype is just a extrapolation of that to its like farthest boundaries. Like, not only is this baby so crappy, they're going to murder you one day.
Yeah, no matter what you try.
So here's
Clifford is extremely like you mentioned. I can't remember if it was before or after, but you mentioned how it was almost he's redeemed. Clifford being redeemed is kind of like I especially with the bad seed. I mean, spoilers. It tells you not to spoil the show, but is it okay if I spoil it for everyone?
yeah, this is the time to do it.
The woman is like the little baby kid that is killing everybody at the very end of the movie is doing this diabolical act to be manipulative, and you see it happening and you're like there's no way they can stop her, and then she's struck by lightning, and it is so stunning because it leaves you thinking, you're asking like what just happened, then you're thinking about what it took them to actually pull off the special effects. I don't know, how did you feel about it, Thomas?
Well, you were like, "Oh my God, the ending! It's got this twist." My jaw dropped. I was expecting something huge, and then we got the ending that we got, and I was just like, "What did Will see that I didn't see?" And here, I'll pull up the actual frames. So
Boom.
here's what happens at the end of the movie. So the girl goes to the end of this dock. Long story short, she killed some kid with like her tap dance shoes. She like beat him in the head, and then she hides the tap dance shoes, and then she like throws them into the river or something. After they like she can't burn them in the furnace. And then at the end, she goes to retrieve them again, and as she's retrieving them, she gets hit by lightning and assumedly dies. And I guess that we were talking to David Charles Plate, I think, and he mentioned that this might have been because maybe you mentioned this, that movies during this particular time period all had to show that villains got some sort of a punishment. Like you couldn't reward a villain by being a good guy. So they realized, like, oh, we have to kill this little girl at the end of the movie
Right.
because it's the law.
And it was basically like Deus Ex Machina, right? Like it was like God took a hand in the whole situation because you couldn't stop this chick. There was one other time before this that my jaw dropped, and that's when the mother committed suicide. It fades to black. You wake up with her in the hospital. Everybody's kind of like standing around her. And then all of a sudden you see the girl like skipping down the hall again. And you're like, holy shit, the bitch is still alive. And then there's this buildup because like, you know what she's planning, although it doesn't tell you what she's doing. You know exactly what she's doing. And there's this tension of like somebody calls the home. So the dad wakes up and he's like, where is the girl? And then I look at the time meter of how much is left. And I think that's probably the difference, is because I knew that the movie was wrapping up. And I was like, how can they wrap this up? There is still so much going on. This is like impossible to like, you're going to leave us hanging. And I mean, I guess in a way they left us hanging because all of a sudden this like lightning bolt comes out and that's the end of the girl. And then that's like the end of the movie. Like, it's really like they have like a little bit of a casting like expose, but that's it. Like it's like finite. She gets hit by lightning and boom, it's over. And what I discovered is that this had to do with like the MPAA back in that time period could not glorify crime. So crime couldn't pay. And the original play and in the original book, the girl got away with it. She just lived, the mom died. And they reversed this, made the girl die and made the mom live. This is wild.
I honestly think the movie works without the final lightning scene. I think the lightning scene, if anything, feels a little bit tacked on and kind of neuters some of the tension that gets built up over, oh my God, this monster exists out there in the world.
Yeah. But you have, I mean, the impact of, I would have probably been more impacted by the overall themes of the movie if the girl had gotten away with it. Like if she'd gotten away with it, I would have been like thinking about it like for a while, like what made her do it? Was the mom right? All of these other things. Really and truly though, the lightning blast at the end kind of like woke me up from all of that, like trying to figure out what was going on as far as like, because they make this comment, which I thought was really like, it was impactful for my way of seeing things, especially when you look at things from like a person who is like born to be evil, so to speak. They talk about her being born blind. Like she can't see the difference between like what she want, like opposing her will upon the like another person's life like that. Because during Bad Seed and even, I mean, during Clifford, during The Good Son, like all these other movies that we've seen that are attached to it, like there's always this thing was like the person who's committing the crime doesn't get it. I think the only one that probably steps out of that range is probably like Joshua. Joshua's like way too smart not to know he's not fucked up in this like Dexter or Hannibal Lecter type of way. Like,
I don't know about that. I feel like almost all these kids know that they're screwed up. They just don't care to varying extents. And that's actually the one thing that makes Clifford stand out from all the other movies, is that he actually does care what people think of him at the end, and he uses this to kind of like course correct. He actually uses that to change his entire personality and like live out into life. Almost every other one of these examples ends in some sort of a tragedy, and no one really has any kind of retribution or like atonement. So like we got Bad Seed in 1956. Then we've got It's a Good Life in 1961, arguably one of the best Twilight Zone episodes ever. This is where everything this kid Anthony does, everyone's like, it's good you did that, Anthony. It's good you killed your uncle. It's good you did, like, so and clearly everyone's terrified.
Out there like a jack in the box into the cornfield, Anthony.
Yeah, it's good you did that. Then
Isn't
there
it
is
good,
the
Grandma?
Twilight.
Isn't it good? Grandma's over there like,
The Twilight Zone movie redoes that. They keep the exact same name and everything. It's still Anthony, and he's still got this family, except they've got a way bigger budget, and it kind of gets surreal. And now instead of sending someone out to the cartoon field, or to the cartoon field, out to the cornfield, Anthony in the Twilight Zone movie sends them to Cartoon Land. But it's basically the
right.
exact same and this one is, I think, interesting because they go a tiny bit deeper, where they're mentioning how Anthony has this teacher that he meets and he invites her over. He kind of like gets hit by her car on purpose, invites her over, and when they sit down and have dinner, it's all like candy and ice cream and like hamburgers and sloppy joes. And she tells him like, "You can't eat this every night, right? Like you're a growing boy." And he gets mad at everyone, and he's like, "See, you guys would never tell me that I can't eat this food. Like she's telling me, but you would never say that. But you know that if anyone were to say that to him, he would just kill him."
He ran off into the sunset with her too, if I remember correctly. Like
There
that's how
might be
that
a
was
redemption
in.
arc there because
Yeah, there
she
is a redemption
implied
arc.
she wanted to teach him to use his powers for good, but we don't necessarily see that ever actually happen.
I hear, although I didn't check it out, I hear that there was another Twilight Zone that happened like sometime in the 90s where it was the exact same actor who played the original Anthony having a daughter, but I don't know much more about that than that. I just feel like it, like you said, it's definitely one of the most replayed Twilight Zones. It has like there's a Bart Simpson where he does it. There's a Johnny Bravo I remember looking up where Johnny Bravo is also getting sent out into the cornfield every time he pisses off
Right. Yeah, yeah.
his. So it's like it was a very like impactful one. Problem Child 1990 though. I didn't realize that that was like so early. So that Problem Child predates Clifford by a lot actually. Like they
Yeah,
didn't have to
solid 4
change it.
years.
They didn't have to change it to Martin. I mean, it's not really like competitive in the same year market, but I would have never grouped those two together. What do you think?
Well, they're both about bad seeds, and they had a comedy spin. Although the comedy in Problem Child, actually, I mean, I rewatched it for this episode. So I rewatched Problem Child. I don't know, man. Maybe I just grew up liking the movie, but I think it really holds up. The humor is like elevated. It's not just all farts and whoopee cushions and like poop jokes, right? Like there's legitimately some pretty like biting commentary in here, and the kid legitimately plays kind of an asshole. Although him and Clifford are somewhat similar in that they can be redeemed. I mean, I've seen all the Problem Children, and he is deep down. You get that this was nurture more than nature, possibly. Although when we get into like Kevin and stuff, it kind of goes up in the air. But both Junior from Problem Child and Clifford, they're ultimately good deep down, but they're acting out because they want attention, or they've got some kind of issue that they're working through. Although the Clifford comedy truly takes it to like a surreal level. I don't think that the same people that love Problem Child are going to watch Clifford and be like, it's the same movie. Like they're completely different movies, even though they play on this same archetype of the child tyrant.
I can't. John Ritter, is that right?
John Ritter, yeah, he's the dad in Problem Child.
Dude, the stuff that John Ritter is in at that time is like out of control.
Well, Stay Tuned, I think, was right around that same
Oh
time
yeah.
period too. That was
I
super
mean,
classic.
you made a classification. We're not using demonic possession, but like the whole parent's responsibility and like this totally evil child that plays like in Rosemary's Baby or The Omen and stuff like that. That's the kind of the same category that I put Problem Child in.
Well, okay, so yeah, I think that for the most part, just so this wasn't a review about like 30 different freaking movies, I think originally I was like, we need to put a line at like school shooters, and we need to put a line at like Exorcist, and I think we opened up the line to the school shooters because it does kind of play into this theme more so. I think the demon possessed Rosemary's Baby Exorcist angle That one, it's more like the evil existed outside the kid and had to be brought into the kid either through a moonchild ritual or through like poltergeist style comes from the TV. But ultimately, in those cases, the child is just a vessel for some other evil entity that's kind of using their body through nefarious means. I actually think it's even scarier to consider that like the kid came out of the womb evil already, and it wasn't because of a moonchild ritual. It's because something inside their human brain and not a
Bad luck.
demonic possession that's making them want to kill.
In a weird way, man, I kind of feel like we're like apologizing for Clifford. Like Clifford is he's the ultimate one who like overcomes all of these evil babies' other fucking problems. You know what I mean?
Oh, because he's also an adult, man. Like you would expect him to come out of it as an adult, right? And they even mentioned in the interview that one of the problems was that if you have a little kid acting like a little tyrant constantly, then you kind of accept that. But if you have a Martin Short playing the tyrant kid constantly, then they were afraid the viewers would get fatigue from just like, oh my God, this shtick. They're like over, like Saturday Night Live style movies where you're just like, oh my God, it's 2 hours of this like 15-minute skit. And I think they did a good job of not doing that. Like every second that Martin Short is on screen, it's a surreal experience. And I don't think I ever really get tired of him throughout watching Clifford. There's some things that he does that are just so annoying that you wouldn't even think of. Like he just makes these weird faces, and his Uncle Martin at one point he's like, "Can't you just look at me like a normal human boy?" And he can't. Like he's trying to like position himself to do it, and I just like some of those scenes are so classic to me. I don't know if it's just me or if anyone that sees it is like, "Oh my God, what a classic scene."
What I enjoyed was the article you sent to me had like the original audition tapes in it, and the audition tapes were basically like made it plain that he was doing this like ridiculous version of the bad seed girl. Like the pitch of his voice and everything was so intentionally like targeted towards her. But when I think halfway through the movie, it becomes this totally different thing. I mean, I just watched Happy Gilmore 2 just this last week or whatever, and I Clifford reminds me of the same type of. It was like the pre-Adam Sandler humor, like when you watch an Adam Sandler movie. Specifically, I'm thinking of like that movie he did, Funny People, where he's basically playing himself, and you see some of the ridiculous movies he's been in they're not real movies, but you could kind of like imagine them as such. Clifford seems like it wasn't Adam Sandler's movie.
It seems like a fake movie trailer that wouldn't have actually been made. Yeah.
That's exactly what it feels like. But so it's like there's weird shit like with the like we know for a fact that they were inspired by Bad Seed, but we don't know about like the Twilight Zone. However, like during the Twilight Zone from 56, there's a scene where he's making his own TV. And during that, he's like making everybody watch these two dinosaurs gore each other. It's like this horrible scene. None of the adults are enjoying it. And afterwards, I was like, that was the best TV I've ever seen.
It's good that you did that, Anthony.
It's good that you made those dinosaurs kill each other. And I feel like either a sync or it was intentionally done in Clifford. Well, what's his dinosaur's name? Like he has like this dinosaur that's like his imaginary friend. He blames everything.
Oh, is it Stefan?
Stefan.
Is it? I think it is.
Yeah, something like that. So a real sophisticated name for the dinosaur.
So that's actually a really good point, because after watching all these, I almost feel that the Twilight Zone Anthony is more of the archetype that we see afterwards than the Bad Seed. Because in the original Bad Seed, the mom has like an inkling that the daughter is bad, and over time, everyone's kind of like learns, but she doesn't necessarily make demands and force people to submit to her will or else. She's just like doing horrible stuff to people, period. It's not like she's trying to get to this like ultimate end. In every other version of this afterwards, It kind of is. They kind of have like some objective at the end of it. Either they're messing with one of the parents, or in Clifford's case, he wants to go to Dinosaur World. In Anthony's case, in the TV show and in the Twilight Zone movie, he's kind of just looking for constant reapproval, right? So there's these like external forces that they're after, and they're manipulating everyone to get to them. In the original Bad Seed, she really just likes hurting people and causing chaos. It's not even that there's a benefit to it other than her going through the sadistic experience. I wanted to point out too that we got Good Life 61, we got Twilight Zone movie 83, Problem Child is in 1990, and then there's some other sleepers that you might not have heard of that are well worth watching, especially in this vein. So one of them was 1992, a movie called Mikey. It's starring the kid that was in Blank Check, the Disney movie with Karen Duffy. And this one, he basically has the highest body count out of all these movies. He's got the highest body count in less than 5 minutes into the movie, and then he adds like another couple bodies on top of that by 7 minutes in. So this kid isn't just like shaping up to be a psychopath. He's already murdering his his real parents, any of his adoptive parents, and he keeps like going through all these different phases. So this one is pretty serious. Then there is The Good Son 93, Macaulay Culkin,
Right.
which is sort of a crappier version of Mikey, in my opinion, only because I think The Good Son banked too much on the juxtaposition of Macaulay Culkin going from Home Alone into this archetype. Although the more I think about it too, Home Alone he's doing murderous things. He's doing things that maim and torture adults, but because it's justified to the viewer, he's not seen as a problem child. He's seen as like he's defending himself. But if you're defending yourself, you don't have to set someone's head on fire.
You could totally do like a mashup of like The Good Son and Home Alone, where it's like he turns to the damn like the crooks and he's like, "Don't fuck with me." But yeah, that's a good point. I kind of killed that one in a way that was like played out in the same thread as Clifford in 94 because of bad reviews or whatever. I went back and watched The Good Son, and I feel like I saw it in a theater. Like I remember it's got a very
I think so too.
Yeah, I feel that. I remember feeling that all of that movie in the theater, but I had forgotten like the best parts of it, I think.
So out of all these movies, once you get to the good, if you watch them in order, once you get to The Good Son 93, I feel like this is the most realistic approach to this particular topic out of all of them so far, where like you could actually see someone like Macaulay Culkin in 93 actually like threatening to push people down a well, actually like shooting bolts at dogs and hurting animals, and
it's not happened at Diddy parties, bro.
So you can justify some of it because he's been traumatized, but this one, it felt the most realistic. It was not a Twilight Zone episode.
No.
It wasn't theatrical. It wasn't silly or campy. It was like, oh wow, mate, like there might actually be horrible little children out there that are like murdering their siblings and going after their parents. So
again, though, I thought of this one immediately after The Bad Seed, probably because of the name. You have like The Bad Seed and The Good Son or whatever. But the parental choice to take their child was brought up in this one as well. Because at the very end of The Good Son, that's like the whole thing is the mom has to choose between Elijah Woods or Macaulay Culkin, and she basically lets him go. But there's this weird thing that happens to you emotionally. Like it's almost like the Joker. You know, when the Joker's about to kill Robert De Niro, there's a part of us that is like kind of wants him to do it. And there's a part of us who all cheered the death of The Good Son. And I think that's a good point to make because it's like there is like a little bit of a Hitchcockian like twist or like The Sixth Sense. You know what I mean? Like you almost want that like the bad news to be brought onto him or whatever.
Oh yeah, because right now as a child, this is like the using a time machine to go back and kill Hitler, right? Like You
Yeah,
want these horrible bad seed children to die as children, because once they become adults, now you're like, they have the resources at their disposal to cause real harm. And that's actually in Clifford towards the end, the talk that his Uncle Martin gives to him. He's basically telling him like, I don't know if I should save you. I might be doing humanity a favor by letting you die right now. And he's not even being
I'm
mean
the good
about it.
guy.
He's like, yeah, and this is the one, that was the one moment that Clifford says that he thinks back to. He's like, at that moment I realized that I did care what my uncle thought of me, and I did want to be better than what this like image that he was projecting. So Clifford stands apart. None of these other kids really care at all about how they're perceived,
Or the parents. The
beyond,
good
at
son
least
is
not enough
fucked
to
up, man.
change them.
I remember the scene where he's like talking to Elijah Woods and he's like, she's no longer my mom. She's your mom, right? And it's just like the twisted logic and manipulation. Like it's, I gotta admit, like Macaulay Culkin does like a good job. I don't, Elijah Woods, he is where he is. Uh, I guess Macaulay probably doesn't even have to do movies anymore, but in a way, that's not a bad performance by him. I like
I think it's good. He does creep you well, even if it ruined the rest of his career from that point
might have.
forward. It wasn't a bad sort of character for him.
No,
And
I mean
then
Elijah Woods just played the same character he always did. I'm not,
an
but
innocent kid that's shocked to be involved with some sort of
right.
thing. Yeah.
I gotta take the ring to Mordor.
North is kind of like very similar too, where he's kind of like an orphan that's shopping around for parents now, which is an
oh,
extension of the good son.
oh, you know what? I just thought of something though. Elijah Woods in Sin City is basically a bad seed, right? Oh boy, we never fucking thought about this because in that's the whole point is he's a serial killer that this politician in Sin City has had captivated and kind of feeds him like prey. You know what I'm saying? Holy shit, bro. There's
Yeah,
a
that's a good
sync
point.
between the Sin City and there's a fucking the good son. He's the good son in Sin City. That's fucked up. He's even sitting there reading the Bible and shit.
He's a cannibal in that movie.
Yeah, that's right. He's like the ultimate of like the worst person possible, Like
maybe it is an extension of the good son as well.
it's Elijah Wood's
Like,
version of
he's
Clifford.
traumatized from Macaulay Culkin. So I don't know if you had a chance to watch Joshua too.
Oh, I did
Um,
watch Joshua and I'm excited to talk about it. There's a lot.
okay, so Joshua is one that I don't think I had even heard of before doing this, and I was just like looking for every movie in this weird genre of like, I'm raising a psychopath. And Joshua is probably even more realistic than The Good Son was. The Good Son for 93 was realistic. 2007 Joshua, it takes it to this slightly extra level where now he's basically tormenting his parents. Like, he knows what he's doing. He knows he's screwing with them, and he just like keeps leaning into it more and more and more. And there's also this really interesting thread about him being fascinated with ancient Egyptian mythology. And he keeps talking about that Seth is the god of chaos, but that Seth is actually good because being a god of chaos means that you're manipulating order, but that the fact that chaos requires order to exist means that it's ultimately good. And he compares this with, I think it's APEC, and APEC is like the true ultimate big bad demon within Egyptian mythology. And what makes him so evil is that, unlike every other god, he doesn't require anything other than his own screams to for substance. So this is kind of a reflection that the ultimate evil can last forever on nothing but just the concept of pain and suffering, but that Seth, the god of chaos, still has to require order to feed off of. So anyways, in this convoluted logic in this like 8-year-old's head, he's like, Seth is a good guy. I'm going to be Seth. I'm going to be
Can't
agent
have
of
order.
chaos.
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna hold on. I'm excited because I think I'm most excited to talk about this movie. There's a lot going on.
Because there was a Clifford in it. I think I got a picture of it. I'll see if I can find it.
See if you can find it. Hold on, I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
So yeah, so in Joshua, I do have a the one screenshot. Oh, I got a couple of them on this movie. Um, was it Joshua that had Clifford? It might have been a different one that had Clifford. I think it was actually. We need to talk about Kevin that had Clifford. Here's some screenshots I got from Joshua. So this is where he's talking about Seth is the god of chaos, and that Seth cut Osiris into 14 pieces. And I think my favorite line for this from this entire movie, he's talking, without Seth there is no order. And then the nanny is like, and then Moses came to stop all this nonsense. And she kind of like grabs his hand and like drags him out of the Egyptian exhibit.
So I that older lady archetype right there is what I definitely I associate her to the older woman in the bad seed. You know how there's like
Absolutely. Yeah, there's this theme of like hurting your nana or your caretaker, and I guess it's the same thing because nana or nona, I believe, was originally a word for a woman that's taking care of a child other than the child's mother, and then eventually nana turned into grandma, but originally nana just meant like lady that's not my mom.
Well, there's definitely that, and the betrayal of trust with her. That person almost babies them. Like I just did this whole thing on sunglasses and what like sunglasses meant for like a higher consciousness or other whatever. But in the bad seed, that's like one of the first scenes is like that Nana figure gives her like these pair of sunglasses and she puts them on and it's like she's overly pampered almost. It's like spoiling a child, like the old woman who like spoils the child. Yeah, there you go. See, that's like the right there, the exposition of the that's from the bad scene. I remember this scene because it was like as she like totally breaks this guy down and this like exhibition of like psychoanalysis, like how smart it's almost a class thing. Like there's this whole class level. You mentioned earlier about the powerlessness, like the individual. One of the key notes that you made was like the person feels powerless. Like the guy sitting there kneeling in front of that Nana exhibition lady is like he's the helper, the handyman, and he's kind of stupid, but he's the only one who knows how dirty that chick is. And then you have this Nana character who's totally spoiling her, and she's like almost flaunting her intellectualism, right? About how much smarter she is than this guy. And she's the one who picks up on the whole situation last. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he knows almost right away, and then he gets involved in like a blackmail plot with this like little girl, and then here's the little girl.
He guesses her plot. He guesses what she was up to. So, and then when she fucking like starts punishing him, he's like, "I was just kidding. I was just kidding."
I don't even know. I think that he really did know what she was up to from day one, but he plays on it. And dude, this is so weird, right? So 1958, they had to get this little girl struck by lightning at the end, otherwise it would have been like a crime in Hollywood to glorify violence, right?
Yeah.
But here at the very opening, she's calling this guy a schizophrenic with paranoid overtones. I took offense to that immediately. But there's also this quote here, beginning of the movie, he thrives on buckets of blood and sudden death. I was like, I wasn't expecting this deep of a cut to come out of a 1958 movie here.
Yeah.
Do you dislike the revolver more than poison?
I was so surprised by that script, man. Like the script, it's just way smart. Like the bad seed is way smart. I know that you don't like the ending and everything, but everything in between, like the whole way that it's like filmed, and it's cut dirty. You can tell it's like there's not a lot of money going on here. It feels like most of the attention was written on it being smart.
Well, the whole movie Bad Seed basically takes place in this living room on a couch and people just having conversations. There's a few extra scene changes, but they don't leave the house. They pretty much stay around the house the entire time, and it's very conversational. But for some reason, man, it holds up even better than the remakes.
I think that is because it was written like a play. You know, you're like by the limit of what you could show when. And then they just like took advantage of that. Because even when that like guy that we were talking about is killed by the little girl, his death is not seen, but it's so powerful because like the characters watch it from window to window. You know what I mean? Like they're following him running down the road until he stops moving, and you never see anything. But like the death is like there's no doubt, right?
Yeah, you like hear someone screaming out the window, and then everyone will be like, "Oh my god, that guy's on fire!" But you don't actually see any of this happen.
Right, right, right,
Which
right.
it's done incredibly well. And then speaking to this Nana kind of being ahead of her time, she's talking about Jung and Freud and nature
Yeah,
versus nurture, and she even brings up this concept of association and disassociation. Like she literally means like the way that you can like associate, and we're not talking about like making
nonsense.
friends with someone. So like she's clearly, or Nana, and then by proxy, the writer of this clearly was familiar with all of these different psychological aspects. And then, dude, this one was really crazy. The mom, this is the nature and nurture thing. So the mom is concerned that the daughter might be a psycho, but then it's like, well, she has questions about her own upbringing. She thinks that maybe she was adopted, and then if she were adopted and her adopted parents were horrible people, then that would explain why her daughter is a horrible person, because she can't calculate or even like accept the fact that the way that she brought up her own daughter, that the daughter would turn bad. It has to be something that she was born with or that's genetic. And this Nana is talking to her about, well, don't you know about the changeling fantasy? And it's the most common fantasy. And the changeling
Right,
fantasy is like
right.
you're stolen as a child by essentially like fairies, I think, and someone
Well, it was
swaps your
almost
baby
it
with
was like
fairy.
an excuse to get rid of your kid, right? Like you would go out there and say, "Oh, my kid is so." I mean, but this goes back to Joshua though. Click back to Joshua because this is cool. Like she's even saying like how to get rid of nonsense and whatever. And then that same conversation is going on in Joshua. However, like the whole aspect of like the babies not being able to stop crying is what the whole changeling thing would happen, right? Like your kid would be bad. You couldn't get it to shut up. You couldn't get it to shut up. So you'd go out and you would leave it in the woods. And if it died, then you would say that it was like a chain. It was like an excuse for like child sacrifice or the burdens brought about by the child. And Josh was all about that. See, this is something I wanted to make sure that we talked about during Joshua's, because the thing I think it sets him apart from the other ones is his parents might kind of actually be pieces of shit.
Maybe, I don't know. Well, I don't know if I agree with that. Sam, this is the one with Sam Rockwell.
Right.
That's the
Great,
dad.
great. It's a great role for both he and his wife. However, there's certain things that his parents do because Joshua's smart. That's the thing we were saying earlier. Like Joshua's talking about these Egyptian gods, but he also can like write a song. That's like how they end the movie, right? Is like he plays like some Dave Matthews song on the piano, and everybody's like, "Oh, you come out with that on your own?" and like but it's almost like he's playing chess with everybody. I mean, do you get the same idea?
Oh,
There's
dude, this scene actually is the best proof of that. So he is intentionally playing chess, and he's many moves ahead of anyone that's going against them. So, for example, he draws this picture in school, and it's got like all these dismembered bodies and blood pouring out of them. So clearly the dad brings him to a shrink, or he brings him to a shrink, and Joshua draws us for the shrink. So the dad's like, clearly there's something wrong with my kid, and she's like, I agree, you're abusing him. And he's like, wait, what? And then he's mentioning, okay, he probably got online, he probably researched it, he looked up like what do abused kids draw, and then figured out I'm going to draw that so that I can then blame my dad for abusing me. And right here, he probably knew exactly what to draw. So he's talking to this shrink that he brought his kid to, and the shrink is totally like, you are beating your son, I know it, like
like
there's nothing you can tell me
definitive.
that'll change that. And
She's
he's
like
like,
looking
he
at him
planned
like,
this all along. He's been
"Don't
planning
you
this.
touch me!"
I
she
think yeah,
seriously,
it's
she
genius the way that he
reaches
pulls it
over
off.
and she's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! Don't you abuse me too?"
This was ahead of its time too, I think. A little bit of like a think of the children dynamic where Joshua can do no wrong. And I think that's one of the scariest aspects of this archetype is that if you do have an 8-year-old that is an absolute psychopath that is like trying to literally kill people, who would even believe you? They would just be like, "Oh my god, you're what a horrible parent that you would think this of your own kid."
This is your fault. I mean, that's like the whole dilemma of the bad seed, though. That bitch like kills herself. That bitch not only like feeds her fucking kid a whole bunch of sleeping pills, she sticks a gun in her mouth and fails at both.
What and that's because in the bad seed, the girl knows and she doesn't drink the poison. She just doesn't because she's already smart enough to avoid death, I guess, unless it comes directly from God.
All right, so I got to mention before we move on, because the next movie is important. Joshua has one of the best supporting role, fucking, in my opinion, is the boss of the guy. Because once the guy like beats the shit out of his kid in the middle of the park, his boss comes bailing him out. And his boss is like, hey, maybe try not to beat your kid up in Central Park with 40 other families standing around you. It's just like a funny role, man. Because the guy, the boss really doesn't give two shits about what the guy's going through.
Well, he totally goads his dad into hitting him. Like you this is one of the rare examples in this theme of movies when the audience unequivocally knows, oh yeah, that kid actually is bad. For some of these, you might be on the fence. You're just like, I don't know if they're truly bad or not. This one, like, you know that they're messing with them. And one of the ways they show it in Joshua is that they have another baby, and the baby just like won't stop crying, and the baby crying constantly is like destroying this marriage. Like they're fighting with each other, they're having all kinds of issues. And Joshua, another weird thing Joshua does, which is very Home Alone-esque, is that he has like a little camcorder and he's recording all this weird stuff that he's doing to people, which is also something that Mikey did in the Mikey movie, by the way. I just realized that. Mikey records him killing people and he like rewatches it later. But Joshua is, I think, recording, and it shows him going into his younger sister's room, waking her up, making her cry, and then running back across the hall, and then like recording the mom freaking out because like the baby keeps crying, and she realizes like, oh my god, this kid really has just been tormenting the baby just to torment me and by proxy. And there's something like, it's not just he's being a bad kid, he's like premeditating, he's calculating as a bad kid, and that's a little bit scarier.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, next one. We need to talk about Kevin. We need to talk about Clifford.
Okay, so this one, let me just pull up the one screenshot that I took from this, and shout out to Noah who pointed out that not only does the movie start with, I think, like watching Clifford on TV at some point, but the daughter, she is literally playing with a Clifford stuffed animal the entire time. Not like the dog version, not the Martin Short. I don't think Martin Short has a plush doll. That would be cool. But so it is weird, man. Like you can pick out tiny little synchronicities among all these movies. Like they all connect to each other. Just like you mentioned in the Twilight Zone, It's a Good Life. The kid is making the TV show with dinosaurs, and then Clifford's got dinosaurs.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. Like there's little connection points even between like other movies that we're not talking about. But what was the one thing about the archery? There's like two movies that we saw that were involving with archery. There's what about
it was Mikey. Mikey, as soon as he gets with his new adoptive parents, the first thing that is he bonds with his dad over is archery. His is they go to like a Native American like Weeblo style camp, like a YMCA thing, and he learns how to do archery there. We need to talk about Kevin. Archery is the first thing that, long story short, this kid is like tormenting his mom nonstop, but he acts normal in front of his dad. So he's doing kind of what Joshua did, but he turns it all the way up to 11 and he laser focuses, gaslighting his mom the entire time. And then at some point in this movie, she starts reading him Robin Hood, and he clicks in somehow. And like now all of a sudden He's listening to her read stories. He's like laying on her. He's acting like an actual like son. But you realize slowly that really he just likes the violent aspect of like the weapons. Like he likes the weapons of Robin Hood. And then he starts learning how to shoot bow and arrow. And then it kind of does this age progression where now he's a teenager and he's still shooting bow and arrow.
Mm. I think that
And
I think that that's the same type of like sync, you know, that like kind of joins the text together in a way.
Well, and not just that, man, but the Robin Hood is one of my favorite examples of
It's a
golden
visual.
bow symbolism, and golden
Oh,
bow symbolism brings you right back to that king kill, where like he's gonna kill the dad, especially if it's not your actual dad, if it's not your blood relative. Well, now the orphan traveling to a new kingdom and dethroning the king. That's sort of like this ancient Robin Hood archetype.
well, I guess. I mean, would you say was Robin Hood the first school shooter? I mean, was he like the one who went against authority in a way and took, is he a vigilante? Would Robin Hood be the first vigilante? I mean, he's basically Batman, right? He's like got all his trees. He's got like a he's Batman with a mob.
Kind of, except Batman. As far as I know, Batman was never motivated by like a classic king kill ritual. Because Robin Hood, it's all about Maid Marian. It's about winning the hand of Maid Marian
Yes.
through these acts of merit, and then essentially, I mean, in most of the versions of Robin Hood, he doesn't kill the king, but that's ultimately what king kill ritual is you win the hand of the princess and then kill the king so that you can become the king. So I think in that regard, there's none of that extra aspect to it. Like there's not, Batman doesn't want to kill anyone's dad and marry a chick. If anything, Batman seems like asexual in a way.
I guess so. I guess you're right.
Like
We
he
need to
sits
talk
him
about
basing her all the way at the other end of that table, right? Like that seems like
right.
an asexual thing to do.
That's not a good move, bro. All right, so Bad Seed in 2018 is like a direct remake. I didn't watch this one. What did you think?
It's a direct remake with Rob Lowe, and it does not have the lightning scene at the end. It
Oh,
basically ends the way you would expect the Bad Seed to originally end without that. And they leave it open for a sequel called The Bad Seed Returns, which I don't recommend. It's technically it's the same actress, but none of the rest of it really matches up too much.
uh,
So I would say skip that one. But the remake, not only is it very similar, but they go through the exact same beats all the way to like poison and guns. It plays out slightly differently, but I also feel like this was Rob Lowe, like he realizes that this is a timeless archetype, and he was just like, let me put my name on this so that it lives a little bit longer because of like what we're doing right now exactly. Like we wouldn't be talking about Rob Lowe at all if he hadn't had made a Bad Seed remake.
so on a scale to 1 to 10, what would you give Bad Seed 2018?
Maybe a 5.5 if I want to be generous.
All right, all right. What about Mothers of Monsters
So I don't know
2020?
if you saw this one.
No.
Okay, so we need to talk about Kevin. I think is a really good inspiration for Mothers of Monsters, MOM. So in we need to talk about Kevin. The mom knows basically from like day one that she has a bad seed on her hands. Although it keeps escalating more and more as the movie goes on to the point where she's like looking out for stuff, and she realizes when she gets to the school at the end, she sees this bike lock on the door, and she knows before anyone, like, oh, my kid did that. My kid's the psycho that is the source of this. So in Mothers of Monsters, what happens is that it's about this mom that also notices that her kid is messing with her constantly, and he's kind of doing some of these psychopathic tendencies. But she starts to set up cameras all over the house. She's got like nanny cams all over and webcams, and she starts spying on him. And he kind of realizes that she's spying on him, so he starts messing with her more and more. And it escalates to the point where he drugs her, knocks her out. She wakes back up, and he's got her tied up in his closet, and he's got her connected to a light socket with all these wires around her body, so that if she tries to escape, she gets electrocuted. Or if she does something that he doesn't like, he electrocutes her. Well, she basically makes it look like she dies, and he freaks out and he goes and tries to save her. And when he takes her out of the closet thinking she's dead, she attacks him and she stabs him to death. This is spoiler alert. This is like the very end of the movie. She stabs him to death.
Right.
And at this point,
lightning bolt, though, right? That's like the shocking lightning bolt scene.
kind of. So this is like the retribution. But as soon as that happens, then she finds a recording, because he also was like recording constantly, and he's talking to the camera and he's like, Mom, I'm just doing this to mess with you. You know, I'm working through some things because I saw that you think that I'm a psychopath. So I was just kind of feeding into your worst fears to mess with you. I'm not really a psychopath. But she's kind of watching this after he's already dead. She stabbed him to death. And then she just calls 911 on herself, and she's like, I just killed my own kid. And that's basically the end of the movie. So it's sort of, if we need to talk about Kevin, but if Tilda Sweeney, or what the hell's her name?
Yeah, I know who you're saying.
Whatever. With the ice princess, when if she were to actually kill Kevin, that's basically what Mothers of Monsters is.
Oh, okay. So, but oh fuck. That's a whole nother that's like more that's definitely the bad seed influence, right? Like there's an influence between the bad seed and Mothers of Monsters because of the mother's decision on to actively like operate with an extra twist of her actually probably being in the wrong, but they're related.
And then I just threw this one in for good measure. It's not the best fit, but there's another movie that came out a couple years ago called The Desperate Hour, which is a very low budget COVID movie that's basically just Naomi Watts. I put Campbell here. It's Naomi Watts. Naomi Watts on her phone for like an hour and a half, and she gets these calls that the high school that her son goes to is in lockdown, and then all of a sudden police are calling her and asking her, did your son purchase any ammunition? Did your son have a rifle? So she starts wondering, like, could my kid have been the killer? But he ends up not being the killer, spoiler alert. But I think it subtly plays with that same idea of, oh my God, did I bring a monster into this world?
I like it. With a lot of movies at that time period came out where there wasn't any connection between the actors. It's a very kind of interesting aspect where we were talking about the bad seed always taking place on the couch because of the lack of like scenery or whatever for a play. But a lot of movies at that time period came out almost like there's a Jake Gyllenhaal movie where he's nothing but like a police dispatcher. And that's because it's like all of the actors had to be like 6 feet away from each other and everything. So that's probably the reason they made that movie. But it is definitely like the bad seed influenced, right? It's like I like that. All
there's some other weird scenes in the bad seed where this guy shows up, and he says like some weird stuff to her. He's like, this is the kind of thing that makes an old bachelor wish he were married. But he's like talking because like she's so cute that he can't possibly help himself, and like he wishes he weren't a bachelor because he's having these weird thoughts about her. Here's another one. Yes, children often commit murders, where they're talking about, could a child be a psychopath? So he's kind of confirming all of this. And then he also makes this connection of like mathematicians and musicians. Just like Mozart is this young prodigy at music, that there's also young prodigies at being psychopaths and at murderers. And he's likening like a genius to a genius. Yeah, Joshua, basically.
Yeah. Good catch. Oh, this is great.
He calls them bad seeds, plain bad from the beginning, and nothing can change them. I think that's all. This is ultimately what kicks Clifford out a little bit, and it's also what kicks, say, like The Exorcist out, and maybe some of these other ones, because if it's an exterior or like a demonic force that's possessing you, then that implies you could be unpossessed, right? You could be exorcised, and then you wouldn't be bad forever. But a bad seed has no demonic possession involved. The only way you can fix a bad seed is by snubbing it out essentially.
Right. Feeding it sleeping pills.
And then it ends with her getting spanked.
Right. Okay, so we've come upon an hour. Like, are there more things that you would like? Oh, this is where it tells you, click back one more. It says, you have just seen a motion picture whose theme dares to be startling different. Startling different. May we ask that you do not divulge the unusual climax of the story. Thank you. So it was telling you no spoilers.
There is one other weird. This is like son of a tangent, but I couldn't not notice it. This is from the movie Mikey, and again, this is starring the kid that's on the ground right here. This is the kid from Blank Check, and Blank Check is one of these weird Disney Epstein movies about like a young boy falling in love with like an adult woman, and she sort of like reciprocates it in some uncomfortable ways, some problematic ways, even for the time period. And here's the exact same kid again, and there's this really weird sort of dynamic between him and his friend from school's much older sister. So they're messing with her, pretending like he's dead. So she comes in. This is before The Sandlot, by the way. So this movie comes out before The Sandlot, and it's essentially the Sandlot scene where it's like, oh my God, my friend is drowning. Come help him. And then when she goes to help, he starts like French kissing her, and her reaction is, wow, you're a good kisser, to this like 8-year-old kid. I mean, she's messing with him, but it kind of continues. And just FYI.
Oh, I know that. Okay, that's from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Correct. Well, and this is what's weird, right? So in this movie, Mikey, somebody asks Mikey, "What's your favorite movie?" And he says Freddy Krueger. And his friend in the movie is literally in a Freddy Krueger movie. So it's this weird, like,
That's great, because I've done a lot of research on other actors who were in that Freddy Krueger movie. That's why I know him, because his name is like Jacob or something.
Yeah, his name's Jacob.
It has to do with like the whole like dream guy. In the Bible, Jacob has a dream, and it's Jacob's ladder is where we got that whole idea from Jacob's ladder. But that has to do, oh, that's great, because he actually has, see, there's other movies where individuals from Freddy Krueger had to put on like Freddy Krueger gloves in the movie, and yet they said it was just like a thing that was spontaneously happened on. Nobody did it because they were in Freddy Krueger. You get what I mean? So him mentioning that he is interested in Freddy Krueger, and then that popping up again, bro, I'm going to use it. I like that.
Yeah, that was a cool synchronicity on this one. This movie is worth a watch, even if it's kind of weird. They also talk about assassins. Like, he's literally doing like a vocabulary quiz, and the word that he's given is assassin. I just thought that was interesting. I don't remember the word assassin coming up when I was in like 4th grade spelling bees. The girl again keeps referencing how he's such a good kisser. And she's totally leading him on at a certain point. And then she brings him out into the little lake talking about, I used to be a bad girl, which is just kind of weird. And then she's like, so do you like girls better than frogs yet? Like, she's still flirting with him. And if, in case you didn't know this kid that was in Blank Check ends up growing up to have some like legal and like personal issues. So I always wonder, was this like Catherine Duffy and now this movie, Mikey, that maybe like screwed him up in some ways that were irretrievable? Another archetype is hurting animals. This has got this scene where he's holding a cat, and then it just zooms in, and then even the subtitles, it's like snapping sound. But like this look on his face when he kills this cat is just kind of and it's a little theatrical. This is why Mikey is like not super realistic, and again, he's got a higher body count than Schwarzenegger in the first 5 minutes. 9 years old. So again, it's like this 8 to 10-year-old range. And then, yeah, he records all the crazy stuff he does, and he rewatches it.
Yeah, the whole idea of a trophy is really pronounced in all of this, like especially in like the good scene or in Joshua where he's recording it. Like there's this whole thing of like keeping a record what you're doing, and then that's how other people like catch on to you. But that's like a common theme in stuff like Hannibal, or like the Silence of the Lambs whole franchise, or Dexter, for instance, and he almost always gets caught for like having a trophy.
So I don't have a whole lot more. These are just a bunch of the clips that I got from the Clifford movie as it's starting out. But like he's clearly obsessed with this dinosaur world. So that's his thing, is that everything that he does that's bad to other adults, it's because he's trying to get to this dinosaur world, and all he can think about is either terrorize his way into it or punish people in his way to it. Or in the case of his uncle kind of promises him like, yeah, we'll go to dinosaur world, and then reneges on that, and then he becomes the target of all this different hostility. And out of all those movies we were just talking about, Clifford is the first one to use, I think, technology as part of what he's doing. The Good Son is kind of close. He makes like a little crossbow that shoots bolts, but in
Yeah,
Clifford hacks into a kiosk.
right.
He basically stitches together a new answering machine message, and he also reprograms an architectural model so that it like explodes. So this is the first time that we see one of these kids using technology to cause all this havoc. But then afterwards, we see it in pretty much every other movie. We see it in Joshua. We see it in Kevin.
Right.
Because Kevin makes like a virus that he gives to his mom that blows up her computer, which is almost exactly what Clifford does to his Uncle Martin, where he makes a virus within, he then like loads into the system.
But the one thing that I noticed about Clifford is that it's almost like a spoof movie of like Scary Movie, or how like Airplane is like a spoof on all of the disaster movies from the 70s. It feels like Clifford in a way is kind of a spoof on all of the other like demon childs that came before him, because he really goes overboard as far as like how many different people he terrorizes. Well,
I
I
always
think
thought it was interesting too that there's this scene about the cliff, and it's in Clifford. I mean, I know it's just the similar sounding word, but this becomes such a focal point of the uncle, because if it weren't for the uncle buying this house on a cliff and showing it to his fiance, he never would have had to get Clifford on board, because this is where she gets all upset. She's like, I can't marry you because like you clearly don't care about kids. We're gonna have the kids play out on the
right. I
cliff.
want a kid.
And then he's like, oh, speaking of cliff. And then he's like, I want to say Mason. Me too. I want to say Mason.
Oh my God. Why don't you show everybody where your website is, homie, since you're already on it?
Yeah, we'll pull this up here. This is Paranoid American. Actually, that's a picture of Elijah Wood as a cannibal. ParanoidAmerican.com. We got comic books. We got action figures and toys and stickers and occult calendars and all kinds of other cool stuff that I'm not even allowed to say because of my Masonic oaths. So go to ParanoidAmerican.com. And then also, if you like podcasts, if you want a whole bunch of random content to listen to or watch, find me on YouTube, find me on Spotify. Just search Paranoid American. It'll be the first thing that comes up.
Good grief, man. This has been great, because I mean, more than anything, like the mission of like gathering all the materials and watching everything was like the excitement, like
I was fighting till the very bitter end of like, I don't want to add more movies to this list. And then Noah's like, did you guys see that we need to talk about Kevin? They're playing with a doll of Clifford. I was like, damn it, Noah. Now we have to bring school shooter movies into this whole thread too.
But I think it's the same thing though. Like, I mean, I want to check out the Naomi Watts one, because I feel like that's like at the heart of what all of these are like getting at, is what goes to the parents' head when they suspect their kid of doing evil, so to speak. Like, there's a part in Clifford where they intentionally give him off to the uncle. They're like, this kid is a fucking terror to us. Fuck you, you take him.
Well, they know that's another interesting thing in Clifford, is that early on, both of the parents know, both of the parents are on the same page that their kid is a hellion, and they're ready to
Right.
like pawn him off on the next one.
This is something different, though. This is more psychological because the whole time you're en route, you're probably wondering, oh, is it my kid? Am I the one who fucked up? And that's like a common theme within Joshua, or a common theme within like the bad seed, is this whole idea of like the responsibility of what you did wrong to cause this chaos or whatever.
Highly recommended, man. Out of all these movies, I would definitely recommend Bad Seed, Good Life, Twilight Zone, Problem Child, Mikey, Good Son, Clifford, Joshua. We need to talk about Kevin. Skip the Bad Seed remake. Sorry, Rob Lowe. Mothers of Monsters, I think, is worth a watch. And then you could probably skip Desperate Hour and definitely Bad Seed Returns.
You liked Bad Seed Returns 2022?
No, I said you could definitely skip Bad Seed
Skip
Returns.
that one. Okay. So, I mean, basically, you go up until we need to talk about Kevin. We need to talk about Clifford is probably the best title for the thing, because that's
Yeah, we need to talk about Clifford.
Yeah. Mothers of Monsters is probably an interesting view, but it's basically a twist. It's like the same thing as like the remake of the Twilight Zone, when the kid like gets away this time. Because people have this bad history of like taking a great villain that everybody relates to and then like making him the good guy.
Oh yeah, this is the Disney arc. This is like every single Disney villain is going to turn into a good guy at some point.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Thomas, for like taking your time and everything. We'll talk in the secret corridors of our Illuminati our conference rooms. We'll figure out another movie to watch. I don't know if you can outdo this one though. This was good.
Oh, I think we can, dude. I think Demolition Man could outdo this.
I think that's it then. I think we'll just lock in and go Demolition Man.
Let's do it.
But everybody else out there in YouTube world, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next